Hello, and thank you for joining us in this conversation around immigrant prisons, brought to you by Imagine Justice. Imagine Justice is a historic justice reform concert taking place in the Sacramento Capitol Mall, August 21st at 5 p.m., hosted by Common, including J. Cole, Guapale, Los Racas, and more. Today, we're joined by 4 advocates and organizers around the subject of immigration. And we're here to talk about the way that our immigrant system overlaps and colludes with our criminal justice system. We'll be speaking on the health impacts, the specific ways that the justice system infiltrates the immigration system, the importance of solidarity, and the need for hope in this struggle. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We'll start with the gentleman to my left. If folks would like to introduce themselves however they would like to. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. My name is Ivan Ceja. I am co-founder and executive director of UndocuMedia. So UndocuMedia is a nonprofit that advocates for immigrants and other underrepresented communities. We were very much so founded upon the idea that we can create guides and resources and also share for people to apply for programs that are eligible, and also use our platform as it grew to change the narrative of mainstream media. And slowly but surely over time, it's evolved, I think, to no longer focus around the idea of undocumented lives, but rather undocumented stories. Because there's a lot of stories that go untold every day because mainstream news doesn't think they're gonna hit ratings that they wanna see. And we've been more intentional about also intersectionality recently, especially since there have been great changes recently. And we wanna make sure it's no longer enough for me on a personal level, I think, to support LGBT, support trans lives, support Black Lives Matter. We wanna challenge our viewership, which is in the millions on a weekly basis, to also say you can't be hypocritical and only be about the needs of your sub-communities, but overall, we need to build together. On a personal level, I am undocumented. I am a DACA beneficiary, and I'm part of a mixed status family that consists of 2 citizens, 2 legal permanent residents, and me, myself, being the only undocumented in my household. So that definitely plays a role in why I continue the work. But even then, I know that it doesn't stop when my battle is over. It's gonna keep until everybody else is also taken care of.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, buenos días a todos y a todas, a la audiencia que nos está viendo. My name is Bambi Salcedo, and I am the president and CEO of the TransLatina Coalition. The TransLatina Coalition is a national organization that started in 2009. We started as an advocacy organization, but recently in 2016 moved into doing service provision with the idea that in order for us to empower the trans and gender nonconforming community, that we needed to empower them in that way, providing them with the tools that we need, obviously, to get a better quality of life within our society. We currently have, we're based in Los Angeles. We have a drop-in center where people can come to. We have several programs, including workforce development, including a daily lunch meal. And we also have a program supporting trans individuals who are getting released from immigration detention centers and incarceration. With this idea of sort of like eliminating the recidivism that exists within our communities, and really supporting them with basic needs such as rental assistance and placing them in community housing, food vouchers, transportation vouchers, and we have a case manager that supports them with their individual needs. So I think we're definitely doing work that is very essential and needed for our communities. And we're definitely leading the way in empowering and uplifting the experiences of trans and gender nonconforming individuals.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Zach Mohammed and I am the Los Angeles organizer for the Black Alliance for Just Immigration. Baji was started in April 2006, so we are about 11 years old. And it was really started as a basis for scholars, faith leaders, activists, and so many different people who were left out of the immigration picture. So Black migrants, folks from the continent, folks who are Caribbean, and then also Afro-Latinx community members from North America, Central America, and South America were really not included in immigration reform or immigration justice. And Baji was started to be able to intersect racial justice and migrant justice for Black migrants all over. And Baji really works in key areas, so we are a national organization that really tries to fight racism, mass criminalization, and economic disenfranchisement that happens to Black migrants. And we do that through issue education, policy work, advocacy, base building, and cross-cultural alliance building. And you can't fight this alone, and we have to all work together, including the Latinx community and the API and so many different folks who really want to fight for social justice and really liberate and free all of our people. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for having us. My name is Paul Soak, and I'm an organizer with the Youth Justice Coalition. We're based here in Inglewood, California, and we serve the local communities through organizations, and our predominant issues that we focus on are things that involve the youth criminal justice system, what they call criminals, over marginalization of the youth, the impacts that they have through school push-outs. When they get kicked out of school, we offer them a school. We bring them in and say, hey, here's a place where you can get your GED, your high school diploma, whatever you want, get your way to college, and get out of the system. And so we are a member-led organization. We don't have directors. We don't have people that are telling us what to do. Our members tell us what to do. And the community tells us what to do, and that's what we shoot for. But recently, we've gotten involved with the immigration agenda because there's just been a really big drastic change, and the community is just so hurt and impacted by those changes that we've really stepped on and just tried to make things work in the communities and to try to settle some of the fears that people have. And so we offer a lot of work in terms of clinics. We're part of clinics, and we do expungements, Prop 47s. We hook people up with lawyers, whatever they need. Whatever they come to us for, that's what we do. And we just try to react to any situation that comes up, any community immediate need we try to handle. Me personally, I take care of work doing outreach, so I'd send material to the inside. People reach out to me, I answer their questions, or whatever it is that they're looking for. They might just say, hey, I need help finding a place to go. We can do that for you. We offer clinics and services. We're welcome home. Every fourth Saturday of every month, people that are coming home from prisons, they can get bus passes, IDs, whatever they need just to get on their feet. Whether they need a bar of soap, we got you. You need some clothes, we got you. You need a suit to go get a job, we got you. Right? People donate to us, and that's what we donate back, and we give back. But in terms of overall, we have a number of campaigns. We're trying to really work on shutting down prisons, jails. We don't want them to build any more jails. We want to take money from law enforcement, from the county district attorneys. We want to take money from the people that have had too much of it, and we want to give it back to the community. We want to set up youth centers. We want to put peace builders out in the community. We want to employ people. We want to give these youth some jobs rather than making them go out to the street and have to hustle, and then all of a sudden they're being criminalized for being hustling. Just trying to survive day to day because the system doesn't offer them anything. But for my personal agenda, I mean, not for my personal agenda, but for my personal background, you know, I was a youth offender. I was tried as an adult when I was 17. Ended up getting out a little bit early because of SB 260, you know, through California, that's already passed. But when I got out, I didn't really get out. I ended up going into immigration detention. So I never really got released. And I've actually been in immigration detention twice. And so I'll share that story with you later on.
Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Andres Reyes. I'm a program associate with the California Endowment. The California Endowment is a private health foundation based here in California that works on building the resiliency of communities, investing in communities with the goal of building healthy communities that support health and justice for all. So some folks may be wondering why a health foundation would be involved in matters of immigration, in matters of criminal justice. And for us, it does go back to health at a personal and at a collective level. At this point, there's been countless studies and kind of academic backing to this idea that any contact with the criminal justice system is bad for your health as an individual. When that gets multiplied exponentially, when you have neighborhoods of folks that have generations of entanglement with the criminal justice system, that creates an exponential health risk. And most of the time, these communities are poor communities of color, reflected by the panelists that we have here. Also, increasingly in recent years, with changes in legislation and in administration, there's been a drastic increase in the criminalizations of migrants and immigrants, asylum seekers, and refugees. And we're seeing more and more, those of us that are able to be connected with advocates and those working on the ground, we're seeing and learning more and more that the immigration system is functioning very troublingly similar to our criminal justice system. So that's what we'll be kind of unearthing and unpacking and exploring during today's conversation. And I wanted to kick off by Zach asking you a question, kind of keeping with our bread and butter as a health foundation with somebody that works with folks on the ground and a population that's really kind of been invisibilized in the conversation around immigration. Can you tell us your thoughts on what are the health impacts of being caught up in today's immigration system, like on an individual level, collectively, however you want to take that?
Yeah, so let me just start off by saying I was born in Somalia. And in Somalia, there was a civil war that happened as soon as I was born, so my family had to seek refuge. And when we talk about health, we have to talk about the health issues that people face outside of the US, because a lot of times they're bringing all of those impacts in ways of whether it's physical health issues or emotional health issues, such as mental health. In my country, Somalia, 1 in 3 individual has some sort of mental health issues. And this is because of neoliberalism. This is because of colonialism that still happens today in certain different names. And then also white supremacy and patriarchy that are prevalent in some of our countries that people are trying to leave and come to the US. And we have to also think about how people are coming into this country and all of the different issues that they have as well too, of adjusting, assimilating, being able to thrive in a new country, learning a new language. All of that can be a burden on one's psyche or emotional and physical and social health as well too. And then personally, I want to talk a little bit more around some of the detention centers that are local here in California. We also know that there are so many factors that one's well-being is undermined in detention centers. Adelanto recently had a death in their facilities, and this is the 3rd death that has happened in Adelanto, which is close to LA, one of the detention centers. And there's systemic issues that are arising in a lot of the detention centers of people not being given certain ways of uplifting their well-being. And then also we have to think about how people are coming into this country as well too. A lot of the folks who are being put in detention centers are crossing the borders as well too. And we have to think about why they are leaving their areas. And Haiti comes to my mind. Recently there was an earthquake and other issues that made people leave Haiti, try to cross through so many different countries to come to the border. And we hear stories of just how traumatizing it was for them to cross over and then being apprehended at the border and then put in detention centers and not knowing the uncertainty of what their situation will be can cause so much grief to them, and not only their family as well too. There was someone that recently enlightened me with what they were saying, and they were talking about it takes a village, but how many deportation unravels that village? How many deportation does it take to make it so that the child who now has to go into foster care, who will grow up into the system, and the family members that they have, the neighbors that they have, the communities that love these individuals who are being detained and or criminalized for just being themselves, their identities, comes to my mind when it comes to health as well too, because it's not just about the sole immigrant who came here. It's really about all of the communities that are connected to that individual who's being detained as well too.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other thoughts around the health impacts, or want to build off what Zach's mentioned?
Well, yeah, I think, thank you so much for bringing the perspective. But I think it's also important that we understand like the concept of health, right? Like, and really understanding that there's different components, I guess, that make an individual healthy, right? And how these institutions, obviously, and in this case, the judicial system and the prison system and the immigration system obviously contributes for one to not to be healthy. But I do want to talk about specifically about the health needs, right, of trans individuals who are both in immigration detention centers, but also in the outside, right? You know, talking about like the things, the health issues that people come from their countries, right? Like one of the things that it's very prevalent in the trans community, particularly with trans women of color, or in this case, you know, trans women, is that, you know, because of the societal marginalizations that we experience, right? Like we have to often inject substances into our bodies, right? And so, you know, people say it's silicone, but the reality is that people don't necessarily know what people inject into their bodies. And so one of the things that, you know, is very prevalent is that we've seen that one, individuals have the substances in their body and pretty much it's rotting in their bodies. And so obviously when they're in immigration detention centers, they don't get the health care that they need, right? So that's definitely a challenge. But also I think one of the things that has also been prevalent is the healthcare needs of people who are HIV positive and also who are in immigration detention, and then the time span that it takes for them to get their medications, right? And also, you know, like talking about the psychic, you know, like sexual abuse that trans women, sexual harassment that trans women experience, not only in prison and in jails, but also in immigration detention centers, right? So like all of those things contribute for one, to have their spirit shattered, right? And I think it's important that we understand, again, the different components that make an individual healthy, and having a spiritual health is one of those things that also contribute for one to be able to function in some ways, right? And so I think it's important that we highlight also some of the individual experiences of you know, some individuals that also are part of this system that continues to basically kill our people, right? Because we have to understand that, you know, the systems that we have within our society are not designed to support our people, right? Like they're specifically designed to enrich and to elevate the experiences and lives of white, rich individuals, right? I mean, like just put it out there, right? We do live in a country that is very racist, and our people, you know, are the ones who, like, you know, go first, right? Like kill them first, and then let's just, you know, continue to enrich ourselves and I guess, you know, just let's continue to kill people. Period. That's really what the message.
Ivan, Paul, would
Yeah, I'll say something real quick. You know, just having been inside detention, you know, health in detention is it's not cared for, you know.
Let me actually just add something to you there. When Zach was mentioning earlier, I've been hearing a lot more people refer to detention centers as immigrant prisons. I'm wondering, since you've actually had some experience, if you feel like that's a true way to describe these places.
I will tell you this, that I had better health care in prison than I did in immigration detention. I will say that in some context. It depends on where you go. So what I've noticed in immigration, if you go somewhere private, the privatized prisons, where it's all about profit, your health care, you know, but if you're somewhere where ICE totally controls and they're watching over, they're like, hey, we'll bring in everybody to take care of you, because ICE is actually there watching. So they have their watchdogs there and they make sure things get done, because people can't complain directly to ICE. See, in the immigration and privatization, you can't complain directly to ICE, right? And so the mental health is a really big issue. And That's one of the things that I will uplift the community that's stuck inside detention, that they are very resilient. The people that survive are very resilient, that they push through and handle it. And some people have sat there. I've seen a guy, I read his paper, that dude sat there for like 7 years. Couldn't get a bond, he couldn't get nothing. They kept saying, you're too dangerous, we don't want to let you go. For something that happened like 20 some odd years ago. Like, this man is not that person, you know? But that's how they're seeing these people. And so these things really oppress people and really just put people down inside the system. Like physical ailments, that, you know, you'll get some care. But when you're like, man, I'm gonna kill myself, they're like, handle it, you know? Because that's what we see, right? I seen a gentleman go to visit his wife, his daughters, his kids came. Next thing you know, he was in a bunk, threw a blanket over himself and just laid there, right? And nobody came until his bunkie saw blood dripping down. And his bunkie flipped the blanket, and his bunkie was like, hey, we need some help, we need some help, we need some help. You know, but the people that save the people from killing themselves, it's us. It's the community that's inside, you know? We band together in there and make our own community because nobody's really looking out for those people. And so that's why the suicide rates are so high, because they're not treating that. You know, you say, hey man, all they're gonna do is take you and just, all right, here, go see this contractor, right? They don't even have medical personnel to deal with that right there. They gotta get you and take you outside. There's so many loopholes and they have to jump through just to get you that care that you really need, you know? But like I was saying, you know, I had better care in the actual prison system than I did in immigration detention.
I just want to, you know, just really make it clear, right, that that really the healthcare system, whether it's in prison, the county jail, you know, immigration detention center, which you refer to the immigration prison, right, mm-hmm. which really is what it is, that really the healthcare services that they provide are the worst, you know, and so like there's systems in place or policies in place that they have created, right, to sort of like shut people up, right? And so the reality is that, you know, people do not get the healthcare that they need. Let's talk about oral care, right? Like people who are in prison, you know, or even in immigration detention centers do not get, you know, the oral care that they need, which is very essential and important also for people to be able to be healthy, right? So, you know, I think it's important that the audience understands really that the healthcare system and the correctional system and the immigration system, it's bluntly fucked up. So I just want to like really put it out there.
Yeah, I'm not saying that a prison healthcare is good, but what I want to emphasize is that the care that I got in immigration detention didn't even meet that.
How bad your experience was in it. Zach?
Yeah, I think one thing I want to talk about is some of the actions that people inside of these prisons, jails, detention centers, some of the actions that they take are hunger strikes, and those are so powerful, but that just diminishes and really wreaks havoc in one's well-being to be able to say that I won't put anything in my body, to be able to get more free time, to be able to connect with X, Y, and Z, to be able to have my loved ones see me. A lot of these actions are so powerful, but we have to understand of what it really means to fast or be on hunger strike and being in solidarity with those people. And this has come up countless of times. We've seen it in so many different decades, and it's still going on today, where we still see like hunger strikes are a pivotal way for people to take action, and highlighting those stories are crucial as well too. And a lot of the prisons and the guards and these private institutions are really trying to undermine the people on the strike as well too, of trying to disband them and trying to trying to just make their movement weaker and not let anything get out. And we have to also uplift the people who are going into these detention centers, who are highlighting a lot of the health issues and other issues that are going on, because without their stories, we won't be able to move forward with justice.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to build off of this idea of how you all have in different ways spelled out how the immigration system is punishing folks, is punishing individuals, punishing communities. For those that may not know, for those that may, not be connected to this issue in the way that folks are, what do people need to know about the way that our current immigration system in the state, in this country, is not working, is punishing folks, is colluding with a criminal justice system that doesn't serve everybody? What are some of the aspects of that people really need to understand?
Like I say that the immigration civil, they call it civil, right? I mean, well, where do you jail somebody for something civil? Where do you keep them years in the prison for something civil, right? So that's what happens. That the old immigration system started in the 1800s, and it started with the Chinese Exclusion Act. We don't want Chinese in here. And then it went to, we don't want people of color from Asia, from Europe. We want to basically keep America white, basically. That's one of the scholarly terms they use for what they did in the 1920s. They said they call it the Keep America White Act, right? Because they started saying, oh, Italians can't come. These people can't come. But under that guise, it's like the Chinese man was being told, in order to prove that you're a resident, you have to go get 2 white witnesses, right? You have to find 2 white witnesses and carry your papers with you. But some people lose their papers, and they're like, okay, well, you need 2 white witnesses. But in part of that case, the man was getting deported. And he was a businessman. He had been brought over to work on the railroads and stuff like that. You build the roads and then you're kicking them out. Like, hey, give us our infrastructure and then get out of here. We're done with you, right? And in one of those cases, the Supreme Court justice was like, man, they're obnoxious, tasteless people, but deportation is a punishment. You're punishing these people, right? They're saying because you violated this rule, we're going to kick you out. That's a punishment. But then the other justices were like, no, that's not punishment. Congress can do whatever they want. And ever since then, that's been the precedent. And they've always sat behind that. Even 200 years later, they're still thinking about that, right? 150 years later, you could say 160 or whatever, right? They're still sitting saying, hey, immigration is civil, immigration is civil. The Constitution does not apply to protect these people. And so the regular public thinks, okay, we have this Constitution, the immigration system has to go with all this. There's all these protections. There is not. It does not exist. The only thing you have is a right to go sign a piece of paper. That's about the only right you have, right? You have a right to an attorney. You got some money to get you one, right? You have a right to have one, but you don't have a right to one, right? Because they're not treating you as a criminal. They're not punishing you, right? So this is this blanket policy that they use to work around that little guise, and just say, okay, we really don't, But then when people don't have attorneys, they say that immigration law, the federal judges have recognized that immigration law is only second in complexity to the IRS tax code. That's harder than criminal law, right? Because criminal law is not even in that category, right? So how do you expect the immigrant to navigate the system? Someone that doesn't speak English, that's coming from Africa. I've seen this in detention so many times. People come from Somalia, and they take a hell of a journey to get to the U.S. border. A hell of a journey. They cross through so many countries without documents. They're paying so many people, and they're in Somalia, they don't have a lot of money. They're not rich. It's so hard to gather this money to get here in the first place. And then they come here, they don't try to hop the border. They walk up to the border. I need help. They're trying to kill us over there for whatever reason, right? I'm not going to disclose any of that, but they're like, we need help. And then they get thrown in detention, and then they're like, oh, fill out this paperwork, do this, do that. Here's a list of pro bono attorneys. Call somebody, maybe they'll help you. And then they're calling people, but they're like, hey, blah, blah, my English is not good. Can you help me? And they're like, oh, you're out of luck. That's what they mostly get. You're out of luck, you're out of luck, you're out of luck. And then they're stuck there. But not only did I see that with them, I saw that with every race, right? Every race. And so they say, oh, we provide you with the law in there, right? We just got people coming from El Salvador that are 17, 18, 19 years old that are just trying to get away from some violence, right? They don't speak a lick of English. And you're like, here you go, Title 8 of the United States Code, go ahead and read that. In complex English that's worse than college, right? You have to be able to understand this. They cannot understand that. They don't know what this means, that means. They're reading it, and they're trying to get help from whom? There's really nobody there to help them. And so there's this idea that, oh, they're not criminals or whatever, but you're treating them like that, right? Because that's the way the prison system works. You treat them, throw them in there, and say, okay, here's your access to your little minimal rights. Take care of this, take care of that. But, in 96 was a real big change. When Clinton was there, they put in what they call the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996. And that made a lot more crimes punishable by, not deportation. I'm not going to say deportation, I'm going to call it mandatory deportation, because that's what it really is. the idea of having a second chance or whatever went out the window. They took away the JRADs, where before there was a JRAD available, a judicial recommendation against deportation. You catch a criminal case, you can ask the judge, hey man, look, I've been here, blah, 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 I'm sorry. Dude, you're gonna give me 10 years. Don't deport me from my family. Don't separate me. The judge is like, give you the seal, right? JRAD, granted. As soon as he gets to detention or immigration proceeding, he shows it, he's done, over. Right? They took that away. They stripped that away.
Just want to thank you. I just want to also make space for other folks to also chime in on what are some of the important overlaps that people need to understand between our punitive system and the immigration system.
I think we sort of like, I mentioned this a little while ago, how both, right, whether there's, I guess people think they're separate, but they function the very same way, right? They basically, right, like if we understand how the correctional system works, right, like they basically profit from incarcerating, for the most part, people of color, right? And so that's an industry in itself, right? It's a multi-billion industry, right? And so the immigration system, it's pretty much the same way, right? Like they contract with private entities to manage this correctional facilities or detention facilities to, make money off people, right? And that's why they, do all of these raids. That's why they target, our people. That's why they basically just get people in detention, right? Because they are profiting. They make money for every single person that they house in these facilities. So there's no distinction, on that part. And really, the issue is, what is it that, how are we going to combat that, right? Like I think many of us, are all for liberation, right? We want to, obviously liberate our people, but we also have to understand that these are monsters, right? Like these are monsters with multiple heads, right? And so we cannot use just one sword to slay every single head of this dragon, right? Or these dragons. How are we going to really organize, and how are we going to really make sure that we slay these dragons?
Thank you. Thank you.
And then I think you said something really important that stuck out to me that I like hearing over and over, and that is this country is still very racist, because people think that because they're not experiencing it, it's not happening. But one of the things I learned is, just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean it's not happening to someone else. And just because it doesn't look the same way it did 50 years ago, it doesn't mean it's not happening. They look differently. Instead of cloaks, some of them are wearing badges. Some are working in these prisons and these detention centers. One of the most horrific stories that I think really got me to take on this issue, and the parallel more so connect them, was there was a mother who fled to Central America with her 2 kids. One of them was young enough to stay with her in her cell, and the other one was a little older, 9, 10, so they figured he was old enough to stay in a different one, and he was grouped with all the other children, and he experienced sexual abuse by one of the other children staying there, and there was no one watching them. And when she tried to tell the guard, he said, he told her, that's what happens when you step foot on a land where you're not welcome. And for me, that was very, it just hurt me to hear her say that, because I realized if this happened to him, it happened to so many more, and it did, she told me. So I think it's also trying to break that stereotype. I don't think anyone deserves to be dehumanized regardless of what they did, but that's oftentimes what we hear. Well, if they're in there for a reason. If they're suffering, they earned that, that's what they brought upon themselves. But what are you gonna tell to a child that is 10 years old and now is gonna live with the damaging effects, psychological, mental, whatever, of having been sexually abused, and he doesn't know what's going on? And then I'll never forget what the mother says, because it's oftentimes the stories I hear from everybody who's in there. Even if I'm not trying to get papers or anything out of this, I just don't want it to happen to another child. And that's often the story I think we get, that at our own sacrifice, we say, I don't even want anything from me, but I just don't want it to keep happening. And I ask myself, when's it going to stop? So I think it's really great that we're all sharing these stories, because oftentimes there's a stereotype of those that are in there. But again, bottom line, none of them deserve to be dehumanized, regardless of what they look like or what they did.
And so you touch on a pretty important point of acknowledging kind of a racist history of a lot of these systems. And also, I hear you talking about a need for solidarity, for folks to be able to connect struggles across issues, to be able to lift up other folks that maybe experience marginalization in a different way. I'd like to kind of open that up for conversation. Bambi, I was wondering if you could kick us off with some thoughts on the need and the importance of solidarity in this struggle.
I think, personally, in the time that I have been, doing this kind of work, right, which is like about 20 years, it's solidarity. I think the concept of solidarity, I think it's something that we really need to understand. Right?
What does it mean to you?
To me, it's togetherness, really, right? In other words, that I stand with you and I'm walking with you, and I will walk with you to the goal mark, right? That we're gonna walk together, right? Regardless, right? And so that's how I understand it, right? And I think for people in different movements, right, we don't really understand that, right? Like, in order for us to move forward, we really need to walk together and understand each other and see each other's humanities, see the injustices that we collectively experience within our society, right? And so, I'm giving you like a specific, example, right? We know that in the immigration movement, right, like there has been exclusions of including, LGBTQ individuals into the narratives, right? Like the immigration movement has this sort of like continuous narrative about the separation of families, for instance, right? Not really understanding that we also are part of families, right? Whether it's our blood families or are not our blood families, or are sort of like our I guess, chosen families, right? Regardless, we are part of a community. We are part of families that love us, that misses us, that care for us, right? And so I think that narrative, for instance, is like in some ways distorted, right? Because it sort of like excludes a group of people, right? And then when we talk about, like, again, specifically on immigration reform, right? Or this narrative of reform of immigration, often, again, and historically, right, like we have excluded groups of people, right? I mean, let's talk about, Afro, descendant individuals, right? Often it's just, it's the concept that people have about immigrants is really, for the most part, Latinos, right? Or Latinos. And so, again, like there's not this collective message, there's not this collective effort to continue to move movements. So I think if we collectively really understand what solidarity really means, or if we need to reinvent another word that really reflects the togetherness that needs to happen, then we're going to realize that we together can make the changes that need to happen for our people to be at a better place within our society.
Thank you.
I think what comes to my mind as Bambi was talking about reform, we see a lot of reformists, and definitely in the immigrant rights movement, but we actually need revolutionaries. We need people to be able to not only say that I want to protect and I want to give statuses to these individuals, not knowing that there are so many different challenges for just changing your status as well too, and that's very exclusionary, and that's privilege minded as well too, to say that I can apply for this status, but this person can apply for that status as well too. How do we stand in solidarity for those individuals? And even within like the immigrant justice movement, I've seen so many narratives around the good immigrant versus bad immigrant, and shaming and talking negatively about this individual because they did X, Y, and Z. And then we have to think about why that person was caught up in that situation. What ways can we actually mitigate and help that person to be able to better themselves, to be able to better their communities as well too. And then solidarity, I really appreciate how Bambi was definitely talking about being intersectional, being inclusionary of all minded people, whatever your identities are, and truly holding that to reflect what our movement should and look like is key as well too. And I definitely see that missing in a lot of the immigrant justice movement that I've been part of.
Thank you.
Solidarity, to me, from my perspective and the work that I've been doing, it's just really that we stand united, you know, that we come together and just say everybody's a person, that no matter what they say, good, bad, whatever the case, that's a person, that's a father, that's a son, that's a brother, and in most cases, that's a mom, that's a daughter, right? And so a lot of the times, a lot of that stuff gets like just forgotten, and people are just like stuck on pushing policies or things, and then we forget about the people that we're really on, the people that we're really trying to protect and try to help. But me personally, you know, because of my record, I'm labeled the bad hombre, the bad immigrant, right? And so a lot of the solidarity that I've needed is for others in my situation to really come up. People to step up and just say, man, look, I would fit in that category too, but I'm a citizen, so y'all ain't picking on me, but y'all picking on him. But guess what? We're doing the same things out here, right? But people aren't really coming up to really just represent that cause. And that's what lets the narrative of the good versus the bad continue on. It's that there's solidarity in pushing against that narrative, but the solidarity of the people that are in that position is somewhat lacking. I mean, just to be transparent, you know, that's what I'm seeing on the ground. And so I'm not giving a perspective like from a glass here. I'm talking about my boots are on the ground. I'm on the front line, right? I'm the one that's going to see an immigration judge and talking about, hey man, what's up? Pretty much, you got nothing coming. But I'm out here, I'm pushing, because that's something that needs to be said. That's something that needs to be heard, right? Because there's so many attacks that come on us in so many ways, right? And that's where we need the people to come back and just say, hey, no, man, look, you're picking on us. We're in that same category, but because of this, we're privileged, right? What's the difference between somebody that was born here and me? I came here when I was 61 days old. What's the difference? My whole life here is the same as their life here. We have no memories that early, right? So there's nothing different between the two of us. We both went up and got in the same amount of trouble. We both ended up in the same system, but come back out. Because I have this little bit over here. Oh, you're not exactly a U.S. citizen. You don't have this document that we want. So now you're stuck in this little pipeline over here. So unfortunately, you know, there's just not enough of us that are willing to step up. And I just want to encourage people to join in that fight, to be solid with us. Because we're not only representing ourselves, we're also representing you.
Bambi, it looks like you
I just, yes, thank you. I just really quick, I want to just sort of like bring the awareness, right? How systems are set up, right? To make us not to be in solidarity, right? So, and I'm just gonna give you like a couple of examples. One is that how, for instance, you know, just in general, right? How, you know, there's this sense of competition when there's like grant opportunities, right? For instance, so the system is set up to say like basically, give us your idea, and you know, and then we say who's best, right? And then we as organizations, then we're like, oh, you know, like we get mad with other organizations because, you know, they got the money or their idea was best. So that's, you know, again, really like broad, right? Like how systems are set up to make us not to be in solidarity, right? And then the other thing that I want to mention that it's very prevalent is that how, specifically in the immigration movement, how organizations really are out to gain credibility and choose the specific cases to uplift and raise money, but not really do the work, right? Like the, you know, our colleague here was saying, right? That, you know, like many of us have been doing this kind of work, like with no money, putting people in our homes, feeding our people, giving them what we don't have. Yet other organizations that I will not name, which we can have a pretty good idea who those are, continue to, to enrich themselves and not really to say that they are, but not really supporting people, right? Like I want to know how many of them have put money on people's books who are in immigration detention center, right? We're doing it, right? And so, like those things are the things that are reality, and that, yes, because of the pain and the trauma that we have experienced, continue to contribute for us to like say like, no, I'm better than you and I'm not walking with you together, right? So I'm not in solidarity with you. So I think those things is important that we really recognize and understand if we really want to understand the concept of solidarity.
Thank you. And Yvonne, you're wearing a shirt that really tries to kind of encapsulate maybe a little bit of what solidarity can look like. Do you have any thoughts for us on that piece?
Yeah, so the shirt really covers everything from LGBT rights, Black Lives Matter, the environment, trans lives, immigrants, and then women who still there's a lot of work to be done still. And with the shirt we wanted to do was one of those where I think everybody out there, most people out there will identify with one, but we're gonna challenge you. You have to wear them all. There isn't one that has only one of each. You gotta wear them all. And some of those, is changing those mentalities that were built in some of our own homes, whether we grew up around homes that were anti-blackness was present or homophobia. Like, hey, we can change the conversation now. Just because you grew into a certain idea doesn't mean you have to adopt it for the rest of your life. So it's really changing that. And I think for me, solidarity it's interesting. I see people celebrate little victories within their own movements, and they work super hard alone, independent of one another. But I think for me, what really motivates me is this idea that we'll come collectively, and I'll wake up with the same energy for an immigration march as I would when there's a Black Lives Matter march, or when trans communities are under attack. I'll wake up with the same energy. It won't be an afterthought. I don't think. We all have to be on the same level because we have friends that are really suffering. We know somebody. And then the other thing is solidarity is going to come with sacrifice. I think I really love what you said, how we need to challenge them to be like, hey, you got to support this other org too. Like, they're not explicitly writing it on their paper or grant, but this is what they're doing that they're not telling you. And also with that, sacrifice also means that in the coming months, we're going to be presented with programs, legislation, opportunity to some of us better ourselves or adjust our own statuses, but it's going to be at the expense of others. And we've seen those same bills and same programs be presented before, and we've made the mistakes of just being quick to adopt them because it feels like it's the only choice we have. But I think now more than ever, we should really challenge ourselves to say, hey, no, we're not going to let you water it down, and you need to add to it because so-and-so is missing.
Thank you. And I really appreciate everyone's thoughts around this concept of solidarity. I particularly appreciate you bringing up the need to tackle our internalized homophobia, anti-blackness, and all of us folks of color that aren't black, and the transphobia that unfortunately often comes in our communities. I wanted to pivot to start to close out our conversation. Thank you all for your energy, for your thoughts, for sharing your wisdom. I wanted to end on a note of just like looking forward. And Yvonne, I want to start with you. What for you, what do you see as kind of the next steps forward in this struggle? What gives you hope? Are you optimistic? Are you cautious? What do you think about like looking forward in the struggle?
For me, where I find hope is everywhere, on our past, in the present, and in the future. I look in the past because I remember I joined this movement at 17 and I was scared of public speaking. I was suicidal because I was very depressed because I understood what it meant to have to be undocumented here. And I've seen the progress that I've made, and where now I can speak in front of a large group of people. I chose to not sit on the sidelines and take action. And then I see that now multiply everywhere else, everybody else who came before me and those who come after. So that gives me hope. The fact that in California, at least, there was a point where if you didn't have money to go to school and you were undocumented, sorry, you're out of luck. We went ahead and said, no, that's not good. We're going to go ahead and have a program, financial aid for the students. We didn't have licenses before. We pushed, pulled all-nighters, we advocated. and now they are possible for a lot of people. And then we're still pushing and going forward, and it's cool how nothing has been handed to us, and we need to remember that we've worked for it and we've shown what we can do, and we really put in great numbers. And then in the present, because when things turned earlier this month, and a lot of people were feeling pessimistic, it was really powerful to see just people of all colors and diversity go behind a mic and say, hey, now's the time to be stronger than ever, to really build that sense of community again, and go ahead and stand together. And then for me, just the future, like what I always tell myself is, it's cheesy, but like one day I'm gonna have a son or daughter, and they might identify as any one of these, and I want them to be able to know that like I did everything that I could do so that the world can be better when they came about and into it. And again, it's not waiting until they're there, because if I wait to advocate till my children are here and they identify as LGBT, trans, whatever the case might be, it's too late if you wait till then. It starts now, and that's where I ground myself.
Other folks, like I would love to hear if folks have sources of hope, or any thoughts on like what we need to keep in mind as we go forward in this struggle.
I think for me and for many members of my community, I think hope is the only thing that keep us sort of like going, right? Because, the kind of lives that we live, right? That we are pushed to live, right? We're in a constant mode of survival, right? We as trans women, as we walked out of the streets, right, out of our homes, if we have one, into the streets, or public transportation, whatever it is, right? Like we're targets, we have basically targets on our back, right? And so, our lives, like I am 47 years old now, right? But our lifespan is 35 years old, right? So I surpassed that, right? So I do have hope. But also what fulfills my soul and sort of like gives me that light at the end of the tunnel is when I see other members of my community who come to us, to our center with shattered soul, right? But then I see that sparkle of hope in their eyes, right? And so that, to me, fulfills my soul. That, to me, gives me that there's still hope in other people's eyes. And, I may not be able to live the ideal world where I would want to live in, but the hope that I have is that I am at least putting, como se dice en español, ¿no? Mi granito de arena al costal, And so I think that's what keeps me alive and going, the hope that we will have a better world where we can live in.
Thank you.
What comes to my mind is emboldened. And then I know a lot of times we use that word to say our opponents are emboldened by some of the rhetoric narratives that are being perpetuated. But we have to also keep in mind of people who are in our communities, people who are allies, and allyship can look so many different ways. And what really motivates me is being able to understand that it's harder for me to talk about certain issues with certain peoples, and using people in the movement, using who has privilege and who has authority in ways of trying to work with communities to alleviate a lot of the things that are going on. And then what irritates me low-key, high-key is people are saying we're talking about immigration right now. This is false. We've been talking about immigration. I live immigrant justice and so many different justices because those intersect with my lives and my identities as well too. And we have to get away from this, oh, it's 2017 and immigration is the big hot new buzzword, and it's not. My parents have been suffering with immigration stuff forever. I have other cousins, I have family members, friends, neighbors who have dealt with like immigration issues for so many decades and probably centuries as well too. And then understanding that we are all in this together, and then if we are not working together, we are easily disbanded and broken apart, and we have to stay resilient to be able to be the change and make the change for not only our generation, but generations to come.
Thank you.
Hope. Hope is an interesting thing. I mean, for me, a year ago, I was supposed to be gone already, right, out the country. But look where I'm at today, right, sitting in this chair. And this isn't the first time I've been in a chair. I've been in many chairs, been in front of many panels, many tables, right? So it's not impossible. You know, hope is about overcoming our difficulties, right? No matter how impossible it may seem, it's not impossible, it's just very difficult. What sustains me is that, you know, being somebody that's directly impacted, that's the voice that needs to be said, because if I'm not out there doing it, it's only the other voices. And those voices are the people that are against us. And so one of the things that I hope to see is that more people that are directly impacted come in. And you know, that's our model at YJC. It's the people that are directly impacted that can go and have a voice. Because they're the ones that know the problems. They're the ones that know where the intersection lies. This is what we need to address. That's what we need to address. It's not these people that sit out making rules over areas they don't live in, right? You sit at the table, you know, if you want to talk about law enforcement or whatever, they don't live in the neighborhood state police, right? They're saying, oh, we should do this to fix it. They're not the ones living there. They don't know this dude's just, his mom just died. That's why he's acting out, you know, they just see criminal, right? But those are the people that have been directly impacted and need to come out and say, hey, whoop-de-whoop, you know? And that's something I thought that didn't really exist until I encountered YJC, and that's all YJC is about. And so that's my hope, is that more people will join that, more people that have been hit, that we just show up and just say, hey man, you're right, I'm here. Here's where we gotta stay. And so that's what sustains me, because I see so many of that at YJC, our members. You know, the families are behind that and they go out and they push. And so once that spreads, I think that's where we're gonna find some sense of equality. It's when the people that have been hurt, that have been oppressed, rise up.
Thank you.
You know, and there's this momentum that's gone this way to punish everybody, right? But now we're pushing forward as we progress. And so eventually that thing's gonna go in our favor. It's just a matter of time, but all of us just have to join together.
Thank you.
Can I
Sure.
I just want to, like, you know, hopefully there are personas trans, you know, hopefully there are trans people, particularly hopefully trans women who are, you know, watching this segment. And I do want to say that, you know, I want to echo, obviously, what my colleague said here, you know, that I am one who has been institutionalized since 12 years old, both in Mexico and in here. I spent 12 years of my life in the prison system here in California. I have been in detention centers. I have been beaten up. I have been chased out of neighborhoods simply for being who I am. And so, again, it's not impossible if we do it together, if we stand in solidarity, if we understand that we have power, if we understand that our lives are valued, right? That we don't have to listen what society tells us, that our lives are not valued. We do have a lot to contribute to the society, and we have to understand the power that we have in order for us to continue to grow as individuals and as a community. And so my hope is that you take that with you to your heart and put it in your purse and take it with you anywhere you go.
Thank you. I was wondering, as a way to close out the conversation, thank you all again for being here, for being present, for what you brought. I thought if we could kind of just go around and remind folks who you are, who you work with, and maybe how folks can find out more about your particular work or your particular organization, and then I'll close this out.
My name is Ivan Ceja, and I'm from UndocuMedia, so you can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook as UndocuMedia. And if you're looking for just a platform that will either share resources with you or even feel free to share your story. If a bigger mainstream media doesn't want to pick it up, we think your story is worth telling, so definitely share it with us.
Bambi Salcedo con la Coalición TransLatina or TransLatina Coalition. The work that we do is essential to our survival, so I invite you to donate whatever you can, if you can. $1 goes a long way, but if you can be a recurrent donor, that would be amazing. And I hope I can get to see you somewhere. So go TransLatinaCoalition.org and just, stand with us in solidarity with us and walk with us to whatever we need to go to together.
Zach Mohammed with the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, BAJI, and we are a national organization headquartered in New York, have offices in Atlanta, DC, Atlanta, and then foremost, if you are in California, we have 2 offices, Oakland, and then I am the Los Angeles organizer. You can find us at blackalliance.org or on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. They all have different names, but if you put BAJI, B-A-J-I, you will be able to find us. Yeah, so just in LA, hang out with the homie, and let's free all our people.
Down.
Yes. And I'm Paul Sok. I'm with the Youth Justice Coalition. You can reach out to us at youth4justice.org, and that is the number 4. Just look us up. You know, you can look up Youth Justice Coalition or pop up on Facebook or whatever. You can always reach out. Whatever your needs are, man, just bring it up to us, and we'll try to do what we can. Thank you.
I just want to once again thank our panelists for being part of this conversation. I also want to thank folks watching. Please leave comments, leave likes, share it with folks. And I want to just remind us that this conversation is being brought to us by Imagine Justice, a historic concert that will take place in Sacramento on August 21st at the Capitol Mall, headlined by Common, as well as featuring invited guests J. Cole, Los Racas, Goapele, and more. This will be an important chance to advocate for a change in our justice system so it can better serve everyone. I want to once again thank all the panelists for going deeper into the need for change, the history behind some of these systems, and the kind of self-reflection that we need to do as individuals in order to come at this work in a good way, as some folks say. And I also want to just thank this space for hosting us. We're at Self-Help Graphics in Boyle Heights. Self-Help Graphics has been here in East LA for over 40 years, working at the intersection of justice and art. For me personally, art is a very magical place. It's a place where we're able to dream up of the kind of world that we would like to see. It's a place of visioning, and it's a place of empowerment. And we wanted to bring a little bit of that to close this conversation. So with that, I would like to introduce Yosimar Reyes, a very talented poet that is going to close us out with a piece that will touch on some of what's been talked about here in conversation. So once again, thank you for joining us. Thank you all. And we hope to see folks soon at a meeting, at a rally. Yeah, thank you.
You tell me you don't like the city, that these buildings, this concrete numbs the senses, cages the spirit, and baby, your spirit was meant to be free. You, my love, were born to be revolutionary. Like the winds we felt sitting on top of the world, free like the tobacco you offered to blow blessings free. Like palabras sagradas que salen de tu boca y las rimas femeninas y masculinas that you buzz here on stage. You are my revolutionary, not a guerrero but a healer, because sometimes of conflict, mi rey, you heal. And more than body, I must agree with you that you are spirit, because more than your flesh, I'm in love con el corazón que tienes. You are the reason why I love men with noble hearts, the reason why I don't mind sharing a bed with someone. For men like you, I would ride a million barks, get lost in Oakland and find your house beneath the brightest star. Mi vida, you come from tierra, where the spirits of those who fail to cross over Rome. You come from el desierto, but baby, we all know you are not deserted. You got me, and together we are 4 spirits, like the 4 directions. You have the creator behind you. You're his creation, his masterpiece. And in this journey you are traveling, you have managed to leave your footprints in my heart. I carry your breath in my hair, your teachings in my 2 spirit. You are fluid, como los ríos que nuestra gente ha cruzado. You remind me that the only possessions we have in this world are our bodies and our voice, and the combination of the 2 must be used to honor the spirits of los antepasados. This life is a ritual, and in its sacredness, I'm so glad I'm able to hug you. You are my revolutionary. And as you make your transition back home into the arms of your mother, into the lips of your father, I ask that you take this poem with you. I ask that you take a memory of me with you. Plant these en la tierra que te vio nacer, en esa tierra que ha sido bautizada con la sangre sagrada de nuestra gente. And I will assure you that wherever you be, this love will sprout in you. Como el sol por las mañanas, this poem will shine on you. Now go to wherever home is, knowing that in San Jose you leave a Brambo that has nothing but love and respect for you. In the meantime, I will stay here in this shitty city, singing and singing till the system breaks, till the earth shakes and our people become awake. I will be here singing and singing into the day in which we're all free to return home.